We're spinning. Good morning. Welcome to this Friday morning's Coffee and Conversations. I am super excited for my guest, Judith Rich. Now, Judith had sent me a really nice bio that I could read to you, but instead, I am going to read the one that's on the back of her book, Beyond the Box, because when I read this, what this woman has been up to for so many years, it's so timely and appropriate to what we're all experiencing now around the uncomfortable conversations, the uncomfortable feelings that come up. And so she wrote this book. When did you? A couple of years ago, I think.
2 years ago.
Yeah. So I'm going to read the back of this book in case some of you don't know Judith as well as a lot of us have been blessed to know her. So it says here, Dr. Judith Rich is a pioneering teacher in the field of transformation and consciousness. She is an accomplished transformational and leadership development trainer with over 40 years experience in training, facilitation, executive coaching, and public speaking. So this book, Beyond the Box, is a book about finding the courage to change your life when you're torn between the need to cling to what is known and predictable and compelled by an inner urge to grow beyond what you already know, which I think we all can agree we're in that space now. At the point where those two conflicting needs meet, there is a gap. And this book is about getting inside that gap, finding the tools to reinvent yourself, build your courage, and create a brave new life beyond the box. So welcome, Judith.
Thank you. I'm just really excited to be here, Eva. Thanks for inviting me.
You're so welcome. And I just want to say how much I appreciate the use of your voice and the stand that you've taken around the Black Lives Matter movement. I know there's a lot of controversy around the official BLM organization. But when I speak of Black Lives Matter, I am speaking of the Black community and our fight for racial equality and social justice in the way that the system has been created to, I like to say, keep us oppressed and make it really, really difficult for us to break out of the box and rise above and come forth. So the first question I want to ask you is, at the beginning of all this, we were all in lockdown. And then, I wouldn't say the beginning of this, but the most recent uprise in the fight for racial justice. What came up for you when this whole thing reignited?
To be honest, Eva, what came up for me, obviously in the face of such a tragedy on so many levels, what also came up for me was an awareness that this is a moment of reckoning, and therefore it's a moment of opportunity. I mean, you want to talk about a gap? We're in a gargantuan gap, and so it's an opportunity for us to really get in and do some work. So yes, it's difficult, and yes, it's painful, but it's also I think it's an amazing moment in the collective, certainly in America, but in the collective, for a lot of understanding, a lot of education, a lot of awakening to occur. And that's what my life has been about. It has been about, like it says on the back of that book, I've been the person who invites people into the gap. And people don't come, for the most part, voluntarily.
They come kicking and screaming a little bit, don't they?
Yeah, that's why we call it the comfort zone, because it's so cozy and it's an illusion, of course. It's not, but we think it is. So we cling to it because we think we're safe there. We think we're in control. We think, we've kind of created a little nest where we're inoculated from the pain and the suffering of what's going on out there. And particularly, so, we're talking about the intimacy of race. Particularly, you asked what came up for me, was simply the awareness that, oh boy, we're in it now. Like it's on for the collective.
Yeah, and the fact that it does bring up a lot of emotion in all of the communities onto how we react to the awareness. There's the defensiveness, there is the fear, there is, this is what I'm finding. And you probably are finding it as well, that there are a lot of people who really in their heart want to say and do something, but they are afraid of saying and doing something wrong. They're afraid of the criticism, which happens in many other areas of our lives as well, not just this particular one, but it is heightened. And so the reaction is to pull back and to be silent, because the non-Black community does have that option.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't have the same thing at stake that the underserved and oppressed communities do. And so how would you, as a transformational leader and coach, help people to start to move into the gap in those areas?
I think the first thing is to recognize and acknowledge, i.e., name our discomfort about it. Name our fear. It's like, as long as we're pretending that it's not there, then we'll be stopped and we'll be run by our fear and our level of discomfort, which will have us pull back. But if I am willing to recognize my discomfort, recognize my fear, and name it, like, this is not comfortable for me to talk about, as someone who might be inviting another person into an uncomfortable conversation, I would simply set the table for that conversation to occur in a context of, this isn't easy for either one of us. So so to give permission to people to name their discomfort. There's no need to be inauthentic about it. There's not a requirement to pretend like you have the answers. The fact is, as white people, we don't have any answers. We don't have the answers at all.
Exactly.
So to come from that place is coming from a place of humility and vulnerability, and recognize and acknowledge our own shortcomings in this area. And I would be the first person to publicly acknowledge, which I am doing right here, that I am absolutely not an accomplished expert in this field of white allyship and racism, not at all. But what I am is a committed servant, let's say, a committed ally, which is a choice that I make. And it's a choice that I make that allows me to step into the gap and be comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah.
So I've been watching the thread in this group a little bit with some things that I post, some resources I like to share, some of my whatever random thoughts come up for me. And a couple of people have been sharing that, my dad has said something, or thinks it's a conspiracy, or, my friend, my mom, especially around family members, because I love to start with, your inner circle. It's good practice ground to help build your courage and confidence to get out there in your, your business life, because we've even had a woman that I've been in contact with. I saw a post that she made where she lost one of her biggest clients because of the stand that she took about some of the things he was saying and posting, and that seemed to be not aligned with her values and vision around anti-racism work and allyship. Not that he had to agree with her, but there are some people who are really on the opposite side of the coin that you get to choose to be in relationship with or no. And so when we have, say for example, I always name this phantom person as racist Uncle Jed, that is into the conspiracy theories and things. And what if it's your own family member? And, you know, a lot of people are faced with the choice of just ignore it because that's who they are, or wanting to say something and not knowing how to say anything because of respect for, you know, maybe the older generation or what that relationship is. Like, how would you coach someone around even inviting someone who may be stubborn? It's what comes up for me. I don't know why, around this subject, and has their feet firmly planted in their comfort zone, to even start that invitation to have a conversation or even a response to something that they said.
Yes, yes. Well, certainly it's our reluctance. It's our unconscious intention to avoid being uncomfortable that would have us avoid those kind of conversations in the first place. So what I would do, and I can only talk about what I would do. I wouldn't coach anybody to do anything I'm not willing to do.
Right.
So what I would do is share about my own discoveries about myself, my own blind spots. And I think maybe talking in terms of blind spots is a way to enter the gap with someone. You know, in terms of, I had an interest, I would maybe, just to do a little role play here, I had an interesting awareness the other day about myself, and it was a complete blind spot for me. It was something I didn't know. Have you ever had that? Do you think you have blind spots? I think I would enter into a conversation about blind spots. And then I might be more specific about sharing a particular blind spot that I've had about racism. And I think it's one that I would say, I can't speak for all white people, clearly, but most white people have this blind spot. And we have been conditioned not to talk about race. That's not nice to talk about race. It's not nice to point out race like a little kid. Hey, mommy, look at that black person over there. Ooh, don't do that. Don't see someone's color. So we've been taught not to see color.
Yeah.
We've been taught to be colorblind. And we've been taught that being colorblind means we're not racist. And that's actually not the case. And coming to that awareness, being awakened to that, which I was awakened by my black minister of the church that I attend, was like the crack in my own false beliefs about myself as not being a racist. Yes, I am white, therefore I have racist conditioning. I have racist thoughts. I have racist tendencies. It's in the air that I breathe as a white person.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to come into a conversation with somebody who's like a proud racist. There are plenty of people like that in all of our families. I'm not going to come into a conversation with them from a place of accusing or making wrong or blaming. I mean, that's not going to set the table for any kind of an opening. I'm going to instead come in. First of all, I need to go to my heart. This needs to come from the heart, not from judgment, not from like I know and you don't, and I'm going to teach you something. Not from making wrong, but really to come from my heart, to be vulnerable and to be in my own story about it, and to share my own story. I mean, we've all got, if we look, white people I'm talking to now, we all have, if we looked, if we were willing, we could all find examples of how our ignorance or our unconscious biases have led us to have racist tendencies, racist thoughts, racist patterns. And, it's not like a conversation like this with somebody is going to come to a conclusion and there's going to be a right answer. It's like you're going to be in a discovery. So I would invite that person, to be in a discovery about their blind spots.
Yeah.
And then I would steer it towards racism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that the invitation. I always like to tell my clients to get curious before getting furious.
That's great.
To get curious. And I want to just call out something that you said, and it was a term you said, a proud racist. And I'm finding that the proud racist, and for me, when I hear that, it means people who are okay with discriminatory practices and derogatory language. But there are a lot of people who are proud, not racist. And what I mean by proud, not racist, not fully understanding the definition and the term racism and what that means. Like, how have you been shaped and benefited by the forces of racism? How has it shown up in your life? Have you ever had the Supreme Court have to decide on your right? Now, yes, there is certain communities that have that cross all races, but as a white person, and even females, I should say, now that we've just had the 100th anniversary of our right to vote as women, not as Black women, but as women, to just have basic human decency rights, because in our history, we were considered 3/5.
Yes. Yes.
And that is what has been ingrained unconsciously in all of us. And I say all of us, I look at my family history, and just the Black communities. We are ingrained to even act like we are 3/5.
Yes.
To view ourselves as 3/5, as not worthy, as not deserving. I mean, one of the things that I used to criticize my dad for internally was, you don't need that, you don't need that, as if I didn't deserve nice things, or to, wear nice clothes or have nice sheets. And it was always, we were always okay with the leftovers and just enough to get by. And that affected me in a way that I now see clearly. When you talk about blind spots, there's blind spots on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
And when I see clearly, like, it was so ingrained in him to just have your basic needs met, that even when he became a middle class earner, a homeowner, a college educated daughter, that's still ingrained. What do you need that for? You don't need that. Like, yes, I created my own home where we use the good towels and sheets. There's no everyday dishes. And I do have my special dishes, though, that I love, because I just like special. But what I'm saying is, my mom, and I wrote about this yesterday, it was one of the first blogs I ever wrote, always saved nice things because she never felt special enough to use them ever.
My mom did too.
And when she passed away last year, and I think you and I may have discussed that before, the amount of new things in bags and boxes that were hoarded in her room, because she also grew up here, it was in her marriage hearing, you don't need that. What do you need that for?
Yes.
So, but she wanted to have it, but never felt special enough to use it. So I don't know why I went on that tangent. Maybe this helps somebody else. I'm not going to question it. But the blind spots, the unconscious biases we put on ourselves, there may be white people don't think that they are capable of holding these conversations. Because you say, you're not an expert. You're an expert leader and trainer and facilitator. But when it comes to issues of race, we are all in discovery.
We are. And I think that's really exciting. I think we are in such an amazing moment in human history, and in our experience of the collective, and certainly in our experience here in the US, in terms of evolution, transformation, everything is changing. Everything is up and moving and changing. And so I think it's no accident that all of this has come to the forefront. And in terms of these difficult and uncomfortable conversations, I look at them more in terms of planting seeds. It's like I'm not necessarily going to change someone's mind in a 30-minute conversation or in a half hour, but I do want to plant a seed. I do want to create a small opening, because I can come back and revisit that seed. And I have done that with my own family members. Yeah.
It's funny because I always send my new clients, a seed packet to plant at the beginning of our coaching relationship together.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
When we have these uncomfortable conversations, and I wish I had taken my own advice when I planted my own garden, because I just went in there after not planting vegetables for a long time and just planted. And so the result was not a really pretty crop or a good crop. But one of the things, you use the term set the table, I use the term prepare the soil.
Yes.
You want to fertilize the soil. You want to remove the rocks and the old roots and the weeds. And you really want to give the seeds that you plant an opportunity to germinate.
Yes.
And sprout. But you can't ignore them. And so when we start these comfortable conversations, let's get curious. Let's ask questions. Let's create a feeling of safety to have these conversations where the person can be intimate in conversation with you, can feel safe being open and not be made wrong or judged or chastised. That's so important, to set the table, as you say, prepare the soil, and then plant the seed. And periodically, well, not periodically, but let's just live our lives by example.
Exactly.
People are hugely inspired by what they see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yes, I love what you say about that. And part of that is really getting their permission to have the conversation in the first place.
Exactly.
Is really, I'm not just going to pounce on you,
Mm-hmm.
and be all over you with this. I'm going to knock on the front door and ask permission to enter, because I'm not interested in being right about this.
Mm-hmm.
What I am interested in is having the person on the other side of the conversation be willing to open up and actually receive and be in a two-way exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Like you say, to feel safe and not need to be triggered or be defensive. I'm not coming in to blame you or judge you or make you wrong.
Yeah.
I'm coming in I love this intimacy of race that you call this series.
Yeah.
To get intimate. When people are not intimate with the subject of race, we weren't raised that way. We never needed to be. Race was never in the forefront of our consciousness. It was always something that we saw happening over there. Mm-hmm. But it was never home.
Yeah, because of the negative connotation. It had to be extreme. It had to be discriminatory. It had to be mean. It had to be violent for it to look like racism. And I think what the world is waking up to is the unconscious bias, is the microaggressions, and also the level and the depth of grief and pain and hurt that the Black community feels, that because of our resilience and the scabs and the calluses that we've built up over the years to these unconscious biases and microaggressions, we as the Black community are also not guilty and are not innocent. What am I saying? Guilty of not having these intimate conversations about how this really affects us on a deep level.
Yeah.
And I was speaking with someone the other day, and it's just like, because we have become numb to it, we don't speak on it as much as we are now, because we're waking up to, you know, the memories that are flooding in of microaggressions that I've endured, the stories I've never shared with my own children, with my spouse, about what I have endured on my road to my journey of life and my road to success in life as well. And so to open up and have these conversations, like when you say that, and I know it's not your intention, because I choose to believe that people aren't intentionally doing or saying things to hurt me.
Yes. Yes.
And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
But I choose to believe that that's not your intention, but it's also my responsibility to let you know the effect that
Yeah.
your words have on me
Yes.
because of the
Yes.
history.
Yeah, so I really want to thank and acknowledge you, Eva, for having this platform and sharing this platform and providing a space for us to have these kind of conversations. This is part of planting seeds.
Yes.
So, you know, thank you so much for, you know, for being a servant to catalyzing transformation in the way that you do.
Yeah. I really just needed to find a way to make an impact, because for me, it just couldn't be business as usual. It just couldn't. And, you know, thanks to having amazing coaches like you in my life, you know, we've had many intimate conversations ourselves over whatever breakdowns that I've been in my life the past couple of years. So I want to thank you for still being generous in your time with me. I really appreciate that. And I know that you know that I still will text you or message you and say, I need help. And you've been really generous.
You know, I'm always here for you. You know, my heart is always with you, for sure.
Yeah. So I know you have something special that you wanted to close out our interview with. And please share with the people who may be watching live or on the replay what you're going to share and the inspiration behind it.
Okay, so the inspiration behind it, my awareness about this particular piece came out of so I am a founding member of a predominantly Black church in Oakland. And about 4 years ago, we did the minister came to me and a couple of other white people in the congregation and asked if we would put together a healing service that really broached the subject of from white privilege to Black Lives Matter. So as part of that service, we asked all the white people in the room, visitors and members of the congregation alike, to stand and form a circle, and all the Black people were seated in the center. And onto a screen in the front of the room, we projected the words to this following prayer of apology to African Americans, written by Marianne Williamson. And I asked you if I could share this with your listeners. And so, assuming that I can switch screens here now. Okay. So I don't know when this was written, but really thank you for allowing me to share this, Eva. It's called A Prayer of Apology to African Americans. And I would just say, before I read it, this is where we need to go in our hearts before we ever have those uncomfortable conversations. This is really what prepares the soil. So she says, on behalf of myself and on behalf of my country, to you and all African Americans, from the beginning of our nation's history, in honor of your ancestors and for the sake of your children, please hear this from my heart. I apologize. Please forgive us. With this prayer, I acknowledge, so she switches back and forth between I and us. Just notice that. With this prayer, I acknowledge the depth of evils that have been perpetrated against Black people in America. From slavery to lynchings to white supremacist laws, to the denial of voting rights, to all the ways large and small that abuses have occurred, all of them evil, all of them wrong, for all the oppression and all the injustice. I apologize. Please forgive us. For the denial of human and civil rights, for inequities in criminal justice, for instances of police brutality, for the denial of opportunity, for economic injustice, for all the ways that racism has fostered these wrongs, I apologize. Please forgive us. With this prayer, I acknowledge the beauty and genius of your culture, the power and genius of those who came before you, of your children and all your descendants. With this prayer, we pray that you, your children, and especially your men, be blessed and protected. May your men be blessed and protected. May your men be blessed and protected. May all your men, women, and children be surrounded by angels at this time. Dear God, may a great healing occur. We place in your hands the relationship between Black and white Americans. May we be lifted high above the walls that divide us. May our hearts be awakened to the truth of our oneness. May racism and prejudice be no more. May they dissolve in the presence of your love. May you come upon us and heal our hearts. To you, my African American fellow citizen, please accept my apology on this day. It is to you and your grandparents and their grandparents before them and their grandparents before them. May the screams that were not allowed be allowed now. May the cries that were never heard be heard now. May the tears that were never heard be heard now. And may the healing begin in this sacred container. May the healing begin. May the light of love now heal us all. Amen.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for letting me.
Okay. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this beautiful, intimate conversation around race. I will see you all. Not next week. We're off next week. So it'll be the following week. Thank you again. And Judith, may I ask you, is it possible for you to share this prayer in the group?
Oh, absolutely. I'll post it in the group. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's beautiful, and I think it will help a lot of hearts open up and be okay that we are now awake and awakening.
Yes.
To build a better future and not spend too much time in the pain and the frustration of the past, but really, I love the excitement of creating a better future, that we have this opportunity now. And also those words were just incredibly beautiful and heart touching. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Eva.
Bye, everybody. Have an amazing weekend, and I will see you back here on September 4th.